everyone, and welcome back to Purple Noon, a podcast. Savannah, what's going on?
Guys, it's not working out for me. I'm not doing well mic wise. Stephanie was kind enough to lend me her mic, and unfortunately, my computer's just not having it. It won't even recognize that there's a mic being plugged in. So, struggling a little bit, but I am here, ready to get into it regardless. If I sound off, please know I'm struggling in that area. Be
It's okay.
kind.
Well, and to be like, it's weird because I know it's not an issue with the microphone because I myself tested it before
No,
I
it's
let
not.
her my old microphone, and she even says like right now like that the light is on for the microphone. It's just not registering it. So, anyone have any tips and tricks for microphones and Macs and all that type of stuff? Let us know because
We're
this
struggling.
seems this just seems to be. I don't want to say it's a you thing, but I say it's kind of an unfortunate incident that keeps occurring with you specifically. Not that it's your fault. I would never make that claim, but
No, the
it
first
seems
one was
like
my fault. The first one I threw my mic across the room.
what was the
Second one,
reason. Oh, no, because the Yeti one, you had a Yeti microphone
I
and that
have
broke too.
no idea though with that one at all. Like I to this day, like it looks fine. Nothing is broken. I don't know what happened with that one.
It just
Uh,
doesn't turn on anymore, right?
just does not turn on anymore. This other one I threw. This one I kept a perfect condition. You had a perfect condition. It's turning on. My computer won't read that there is a microphone plugged in. So I don't know what's up on my laptop. Um, I guess I'm not meant to have a microphone right now. We'll figure it out at some point. Um, yeah, it's been hard. It's been hard, guys.
Yeah, well, no worries. We will figure it out soon enough. We'll probably have to dip into our Patreon account and pull out some of the money from there and use it towards finally buying you a long-lasting microphone, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Please.
But other
Yeah.
than that, how are you been, Savannah?
I've been good. My favorite show comes back on TV tonight.
What show?
Succession. Please watch it if you haven't.
Oh, okay.
Favorite
So
show.
that's okay. That's the one that's essentially Arrested Development, but serious.
So it's yes and no. It's a dark comedy, so it's actually very very funny as well. I
Oh, okay.
laughed in every episode. So my favorite show is back on TV. Watch it if you haven't, guys. HBO. But also, I just listened to one of the best podcast episodes ever. All right.
What could it be?
If you guys didn't know, Stephanie finally got to talk about her favorite movie of all time
I
with
got to be ill online, and it was desired.
with none other than our sensei David. So please go check that out. I'm about halfway through it. Very much love your points. It makes me want to
Thank
watch
you.
this movie again.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I say that also knowing like the chokehold that this
Yes.
film has on me.
Oh,
But yeah,
yeah.
it was super cool. That I was able to be a part of it, and that David knew that I had like very deep rooted passion for Last Tango in Paris, and he was very kind enough to ask both of us. But sadly, you had some scheduling conflicts and stuff like that. But it was nice for Purple Noon to still be involved in that episode, no matter what, and it was awesome, and he was such a great host about it because I feel like with the film there are so many things like because of the controversies and stuff. It would be very easy to be like, ew, Stephanie, you're a weirdo because of what everyone is saying online about this film, like it's very easy to just be like, ill, like no respect for you. But he was super super respectful,
Yeah,
and he handled it
for
so
sure.
well. And I haven't been able to view it just yet. I've listened to like a little part of like my stuff in the beginning, like maybe the first 10 minutes, but it's a 2.5 hour episode and I'm 90 minutes of it because I wouldn't shut up about Let's Tango in Paris. But it was really fun to be involved, and I'm very happy that that I got to be a part of it.
I love it. You guys are really going to enjoy it. It's just, I feel like it is a very interesting movie to review. There's so many ways you could look into it. I think you guys did a great, great job.
Thank you. Do you remember what the last thing you heard, or like was there anything in there that
Yes.
like made you okay, what was the last like thing that stuck out to you
So the
from
last thing you guys were talking about, the scene where Marlon Brando is confronting his dead wife. And I actually really loved the point you made. A little sneak peek for you guys, I guess. The point you made about how, David talked about how he's pretty much just talking at his wife. And you made the point of like, well, yeah, that's probably how most of a relationship was. It never changed. And I was like, that's so good. Never thought of
Thanks.
that. That was so good. But that's where I'm at in the podcast right now.
Oh, awesome. I can't wait for you to hear more, like,
Yeah.
just the unraveling and stuff, because there was a really fun fact, and I'll mention it here, that I mentioned how it's been rumored that Agnes Varda, who played a role in the making of the script and everything like that, wrote that scene where Brando is, like, over his dead wife mourning and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and it was inspired by her at the time grieving the loss of a very close friend who happened to be Jim Morrison. And so with the timeline of the filming and everything, it would definitely make sense of how like because she was very close with Morrison and he had like no idea that Jim Morrison and Agnes Varda knew each other, that they had crossed paths. And I mean, it's something that you wouldn't assume, right? You really wouldn't think like, oh, huge, rock icon of the 60s is now just BFFs with a very niche and indie for
Yeah.
the time
For real.
female film director. And so he was like, "What? I had no idea." And I go, "Oh yeah, like if you watch Donkey Skin and you watch the background of Donkey Skin, like the documentary of how it was made and stuff, there's literally a part where it's like Jim Morrison visits the sets because him and the director have an affinity for princesses." And he's like, "What?" And I sent him the scene and everything. So it was really, really fun to be able to like blow his mind with that information, because it blew my mind when I found out
Oh,
about like
yeah.
Jim Morrison having this weird like connection to Last Tango in Paris. So I will definitely link the podcast below. If you are wanting to Google it right now, the podcast was called the Criterion's Reflections Podcast. It's a part of the Criterion cast. And it is just simply like episode Last Tango in Paris. And it's he's going through movies right now on films within 1972. So, of course, this was a big production for then and a big to do because of the controversy and everything. So, a lot of fun, worked with a lot of cool people. So, definitely check them out and give them some love.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Can't wait to hear the rest.
So, okay. So, I haven't really watched anything else except this. I mean, I rewatched Last Tango in Paris recently, obviously. But this, I kind of want to preface or preface this film. So, how I found out the film that we're going to be talking about today.
Mm-hmm.
This was one of those things where I walked by my mom and her mouth was completely dropped as she was watching this movie. And I had no idea what it was. And she was like, "Oh my God, have you seen this movie before?" I'm like, "No." And she showed me the title. I'm like, "I'm going to be honest with you, never even heard of it in my life." And I was like, "When did it come out?" And so this was last year. So the film came out in 2021. So I was a bit surprised. I also was very clearly able to recognize some big actors who were involved in the film. And
Yeah.
she was like, "You gotta see it. It's crazy." So I was like, "Oh, this is probably something that I want to talk about on Purple Noon." So now here we are a year later, finally talking about it. And man, oh man, do I want to talk about it. So the film is called John and the Hole. It is a film that came out in 2021. It is a coming of age psychological thriller that plays out the unsettling reality of a kid who holds his family captive in a hole in the ground. It is directed by Pasquale Sisto. It is written by Nicholas I think it's Giacobone, I think is how you pronounce it. I could be wrong. But it stars Charlie Shotwell as John, Michael C. Hall as Brad, so
Yes.
Dexter, Jennifer Ely as Anna, the mother, and Tasia Farmiga as Lori. So she was in American Horror Story. So you had some pretty recognizable faces in this. Now, Savannah, had you heard about this movie before I ever
Not
mentioned it?
not at all.
Not at
Not at
all.
all. Not even an inkling. None of it.
And overall, this was your first time watching it this week and everything. So what, because I only got a little snippet when I first saw my mom watch it, so I kind of already had an idea of what it was about, but I didn't know like the who's, the what's, the when's, the where, and the why's about it. So what, how was watching this film? I know it was an experience for you because you've already warned me that it was an experience.
Hmm. So, okay, it's very complicated because this movie, I don't want it to sound mean, but this movie was a movie that's clearly not made for like people to enjoy. I feel like it's more of a almost like an art piece, symbolism piece, and in that respect, I have a lot of good things to say about it. But in terms of me sitting down and turning this on one day, I probably won't be doing that again. And that's not, I'm genuinely not being mean when I say that. I just don't think this is a movie made for people to just sit down and watch on a Friday night. But I do have a lot of thoughts on what it means. I have a lot of good things to say about the character studies and the actors. So I would say my feelings on this movie are a bit complicated.
This definitely feels like this doesn't feel like a movie where it's made to tell. It doesn't feel like the whole goal of the movie is to just, its sole purpose is to just tell the story and that's it. There's no
Yeah.
morals, there's nothing to take away from this film except the experience of watching this film. There's not like, you go to a movie and it's like, oh, do you want to feel good, you want to be a little sad, you want to be scared, you want to be
Yeah,
this.
you
I
want to
don't
feel
know how I feel.
emotion.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I
I don't
get
know how
that.
I feel.
I think there's a lot of different also at like you can interpret this movie in almost every way, by the way. There's several ways you can interpret what's going on in this film. And I
Yeah.
think that's also a hard part about watching this is like I don't have a definite answer. If you ask me what actually happened, I can't tell you because I
And it's
don't
because
know.
it's such a intensely blurred motive. So we already said that it's about a kid holding his family captive. His family wasn't abusers. His family wasn't any like crazy
Very
psychopaths. They weren't
normal.
going to kill him. He wasn't, I would say, heavily disturbed. He wasn't any of that. It was definitely like an upper middle class, probably even just upper class family. Um, and they go through this experience because of their son. Now, I want to talk about the characters because the character of John, so John is the kid who traps his parents, definitely felt very familiar. And I realized who it reminded me of. John very much feels like the same protagonist of Let the Right One In.
I can see that.
It's a very still, like it's really just a still character. Like there's some moments here and there where we're getting some emotion, but it's not over the top. And I've never seen a character that is, I want to feel sympathy for, but there is such a lack of emotion that I can't.
I do before we get into like what I think about the acting and what so I feel like it's important to establish whether or not we think John is a sociopath. Because I think for me, I don't know. I think he's a very special case of like mentally disturbed with like and the reason it's hard for me to even say he's a sociopath because when we see classic sociopaths in media, we see like lust for blood, we see serial killer, we see like and obviously there are signs and we can talk about that.
Yeah.
But John is so insecure the entire movie. And I think that's just a great play on the director and the actor's part. He's so insecure the entire time,
Yeah.
yet so uncaring for his family. So he does show some emotions here and there. So for me, I'm like, whoa, is this somebody who's mentally disturbed? Is this somebody who's just obviously there has to be a level of like, this kid has issues. But I would just want to, I guess, pose the question of like, do you think he is just a born sociopath? Because
So
there's nothing wrong
I'm
going
going
on.
to say no. And I know
Okay.
why. And I think I know why. Because there's a big theme, I think, to this film that's not necessarily emphasized. It's shown, but it's not like over the top. And I think that is the power of his affluence, right? So, very nice home, very nice life. The kid goes, I think it's taking place over the summer. So, he's training to become a tennis star. He's doing like this every day and stuff like that. and he goes and plays video games and stuff.
Yeah,
It feels like a neglected child growing up in a I can kind of do whatever I want type of environment. So,
sure.
like this kid is able to play online, he's able to do this. He has access. So, there's points in the film where he starts draining his parents' bank accounts. How would a kid know that unless he's
Yeah.
already done something like it before or his parents have just not wavered that away from him, you know? How and it doesn't seem like his parents are extremely neglectful. It's a weird scenario because there's not a lot of signs of like, oh, his parents just don't care about like clearly his parents care about him. But I think it's just a very confused young man who is kind of being treated as an adult in an affluent lifestyle and so is kind of lost between being a kid and being a rich kid and being a rich adult and not knowing where the line segments him. And so I don't think he does it out of maliciousness. I don't think he does, even though what he did was like, I don't think what he did was malicious, but I don't think he meant it to be malicious. I think it was just something that he could have done. He wouldn't have got in trouble because he didn't mean poorly about it. And at the end of the day, he put his family's life at stake, their jobs, their livelihoods, their relationships, all at risk because they have the financial income to where that's kind of almost like expendable. So
Yeah, that I could see that.
that's
Um,
where I thought. Do you think he was like psychopathic?
I had a hard time distinguishing it because there was that one. Like, I do feel like the first 15 minutes of the movie are designed to almost trick us into feeling sympathy for John because we see him have a hard time in school. We kind of see him play by himself a lot. The one scene I had a hard time with, I didn't understand it. Like, I'm pretty sure like he poisoned the gardener, right?
I think so. I thought it was the spider bite.
Oh, I don't know. I just assumed something was going on. Well, anyway, like when the
It was
gardener.
confusing because when the gardener came back a second time, for some reason I was like, "Oh, I thought you were dead."
Well, I thought so too because there's a scene where he's making lemonade, so I'm like, oh, okay, he poisoned him. But I didn't understand it, like it wasn't very clear. And the other sort of hint I got maybe was that like and it could just be kid stuff, but like at one point there's like a 5 minute scene where him and his friend are like doing this thing where like they're pretty much like drowning each other. And he drowns his friend for like 30 seconds longer. So I think we're not really supposed to know. I really like your analysis though of like this is just a rich lonely kid because it, honestly, I do think that's why he ends not to jump the gun a little bit, but I think your analysis makes sense too because I mean theoretically he only lets his parents out because he just kind of gets lonely. Not because he cares, not because of anything else that like he's just a kid that's been left alone a lot, wanted to live his like 13-year-old boy dreams. I just wasn't sure what the movie was trying to tell us about John. Like this is clearly a kid who has issues, but yeah, I can't say for sure if he's psychopathic.
And maybe the fact is maybe truly I think there's such and this is kind of very like overall an opinion I have about people when you go through life comfortably and you get what you want, you'll never know what you want. And you'll never know, like, I think about, like, even is, like, whether it's through struggling or through working hard or through whatever it may be, and then finally having some form of relief. You'll never have that experience, with, at least not on a life altering level. Like, what is this kid gonna feel? Oh, yeah, I finally beat this level in Fortnite. Like
Right.
he's not going to go through a lot of things in life, and definitely also the fact that he's young, a little bit sheltered onto his own accord, and the only person that he talks to just is a bastard to him. Like they're just like screw you, no screw you, no screw you. Like
Yeah,
it's
yes,
just
true.
like so. I think it's a lot of it's almost like I think the best way I could put it is I believe, and this doesn't apply for every single person. Everyone is going to be different in the way that their emotions are regulated. But I believe most people in life, if you give them like comfort and not give them any challenges through life or any big events or anything like that, they'll just end up blah. And that's what this kid is. This kid is just blah, right? He doesn't have any strong emotions. When you go through life comfort, you end up becoming numb. And I'm not saying like Sigma mindset, gotta grind, gotta do this,
Yeah,
gotta sleep on the floor so you can be grateful to sleep in a bed. Like I'm not saying that, okay?
yeah.
I'm just saying like his life seems very cozy. He seems like he's just conditioned to like and function like an adult. So even though he plays games and stuff like that, what he has learned and what he does is very much of a adult. And even like there's a part where his mom says like, she asked me what does it feel like to be an adult? And I said, I don't know. And it's almost like this kid is going through a life crisis because he's been teetering on the edge of adulthood and childhood for a few years despite him being what, 16?
I think he's younger.
Yeah,
I
possibly
think
even
he's
younger, maybe 13,
14.
14.
Yeah, I think he's 14. So you mentioned the parents before, and it's very funny because the first thing I noticed about the parents, like off the bat, and I have a different opinion about his sister, but specifically about the parents, they from the beginning seem like enablers. Like
Yeah,
one of the first most jarring thing I think from the film was their first reaction to realizing that like he John put them in the hole. I think the dad was like, "You're gonna be in big trouble, mister," and it's like, what? That's what you say when you find out like they left the dog outside or something. That's what you say when your kid literally like drugged you and put you in a hole.
yeah.
And then in the hole, um, the parents sort of contemplate reasons on why John would do this, and they all seem like straight up excuses. So I think on top of like being treated like an adult, like his parents were also kind of like, oh well, he's a kid. Like, oh yeah, like we'll leave you alone and do what you want, but like, he'll be fine. So
Yeah.
it's a very interesting dynamic of this family where the parents don't want to seem to see what their child has become.
Yeah, and it, the parents are it's like they're there but they're on a level emotionally absent, right?
No, exactly,
Like
exactly.
it's such a tricky way to understand and look at the psychology of this because it's fascinating and I like being able to dissect a movie like this in terms of like the psychology behind it and everything. Like even the parents and the sisters don't follow normal slash stereotypic family roles. Like the father is the breadwinner, but doesn't boast or really act like the breadwinner. The mother, we really don't know a lot about. I feel like we only get like a tiny glimpse of her before, boop, she's in the hole. And then the only thing that we know is like, oh, like with about the sister is the fact that, oh, she has a boyfriend, but like they've barely known each other. Like it's such a very weird examination and introduction to all these different characters. Like I think there's even one point where in the beginning when the father is introduced, doesn't he wake up John in the middle of the night to be like, "Hey, maybe we could go play baseball someday," or
Something
something
like
like
that.
that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
something weird.
it's just a very but it's still realistic, and that's the thing that's
Yeah.
fascinating. They're such a weird family before they're put into the hole. Um, they're also like their reactions. Like if I think about, I'm a parent, my kid just shoved me in a
That's what
hole.
I'm saying. Why
The
would you
reaction that they have is absolutely something okay, here is what
you're
I
gonna be
say.
in big
This
trouble, mister. It's like, bro, no. Like
okay,
that.
here is the issue. Here is the dichotomy of this kid. John can do no wrong.
Yes.
John can do no wrong. So that is why when he goes and think the thing is that's the whole premise. John can do no wrong. He's able to put his family into a hole. He's able to go drive a car. He does it and he feels like he has to listen to classical music because that's what being an adult does. Not listen to any music that he would have listened to as a kid, but it's almost like John can do no wrong and John doesn't know whether or not he's a child or an adult or both.
Yes. Um, so you mentioned, I think you make a great point about how like they're a weird family until they're not. And I think that's probably a really positive for me about this movie, especially with the sister. specifically because I thought she was probably the most realistic. Throughout the whole movie, she is kind of the only one that calls out John
Yeah.
initially. And we see that there's an earlier scene where she's reprimanding him about a ball. And it's the only scene in the film where we see somebody be like, hey, you need to stop this.
Yeah.
She's the first one to call him out in the hole. But I immediately recognize, because I'm a big sister too, my brother and I can fight, be in a crazy argument, and calm out. I'm saying I love you 3 seconds later. And
Yeah.
that's what she does. And it's such a realistic it's a realistic thing because you're like, oh, good for her for calling him out. But then you're just like, oh, well, that's my brother. So I think each dynamic they have with John is different, but I thought she specifically was designed to be the most realistic, to be the one that's like, well, yeah, like I'm gonna call him out because we're siblings, but I'm the older one, so I'm just gonna let it slide. Like it kind of made sense.
And I just realized another thing that this movie, and I totally agree. I mean, I'm not like a sibling, like I'm an only child, but I do appreciate those little details. And I do think overall, she was probably the most well rounded character, and she makes the most sense of all with everything
Yeah.
going on. In terms of like the way that she's the one who thinks that her brother did this first. I mean,
Yes.
how else and stuff like that. Like she's definitely the one who's the most realistic. Immediately, I don't know what triggered me to like I was looking at other reviews just now, and someone said that it was, let me find the review. Someone says it was a collection of memorably uncomfortable scenes. And then I realized what it also reminded me of. There was that Michael Haneke, I think Hank Haneke, I forgot how to pronounce it, but there's that short film that we saw that was like 21 fragments. Do you remember that one short film we looked at where it was like segments leading up to a young man who like was going to rob a bank and commit like I think it
Oh
was like
yeah.
that's what this reminds me of. Those little nuanced segments and stuff before this character like just kind of, makes the twist and pulls up on the bank and everything like that. That's what this reminds me of. And I think they could not have picked a better kid to
Yeah, he was
port-
fantastic.
to portray this very sunken, confused, blank picture of a young man. So, and I say young man, meanwhile, kid. He's a kid.
Yeah.
Um, Now I'm trying to. So
Oh, I have a question for you.
okay, okay, what's up?
I didn't understand the secondary story, nor did I care for it.
I have no idea what that was about. Like
I
truly,
don't know what it
I
added. I don't know what it was trying to say. It was weird, and I thought it was distracting, personally.
yeah, like it was very. Here's the thing. I thought it was going to be leading up to the fact that maybe the mother in that secondary story was Tasia Farmiga grown up.
Same,
That's what I
same.
thought, but then I checked out the characters and I realized that that wasn't the case. They're both differently named, right? So I and then it was weird because it was like, "Oh, let me tell you a story about John and the Hole," almost as if this is it's a weird way of trying to declare that what we're watching is a fable, right? Or like a old wise old, tale. So I don't like it was weird. It was weird. I'm not 100% sure what the purpose of it was.
I wasn't a fan. I feel like it was trying to say something about like growing up and being an adult, but like it just was not clear enough. Like there was not anything connecting the two stories besides maybe a very vague theme and the title of the movie.
Yeah. And I think look, we're not going to get a lot of things that make sense from this film because this is done by the man who wrote Birdman. So
Okay.
we were never going to get those things from the get go. And I think in a way it's okay that we didn't get those things, but it was still weird because like if I just view this as a segment, right? This is a segment in my eyes, then it's okay. But if I view this as like, oh, this was a movie, it's weird. It's and it's weird because it's not purposeful. Not to say that every movie has a purpose, but there's really no purpose. There's no moral. It's just a snapshot. Um,
Do you agree with me that we'll talk about the ending in a second, but do you agree with me that this could have been a short film?
Yes
Because I
and
think I
no.
think this could have been brought down to 45 minutes, personally.
Yes and no. Yes, but I do think it works. It could have been. I do think it works a little bit better as a film. Do I know
Okay.
why? No. But I'm just trying to think about, besides like the secondary story being cut out, I think maybe this could have been like 20 minutes shortened, but I don't think it could be shortened down to another hour because this is like an hour and 45-minute film.
I just feel because it's so vague that like we wouldn't be missing much personally. Um so that's why I thought maybe I was like, okay, maybe I could have this would have been better if it was 45 minutes, but I understand too like there are some key scenes like if we're going to talk about like analysis and stuff like there are some key scenes in the full-length movie.
One of them that I
I
want to talk about is the scene with the kids in the pool.
yes.
And almost the significance of the pool, right? The pool is used a lot. Way more like, and we saw like that one movie with that 1960s, I think it was literally
Oh,
called
the
like The
swim.
Swimmer. Yeah,
Yeah, there's
this
like
has way
80
more
pools.
pool footage than that. And it's because I don't know if the pool is supposed to, I don't know how goofy this director is. And the reason why I'm saying maybe they're goofy is because maybe in some way his attraction to the pool is like an attraction to being in utero again. I
Oh my
wonder because
god.
from going, Bestie, I could be right too. Because of the fact that he goes from the environment of, oh, Mozart's playing, oh, this, to then I'm floating in the pool and I'm trying to kill myself in the pool. For 3 times I've tried killing myself in the
Yes,
pool.
seriously.
So that's where I wonder if that's the representation of it, because the only time he's in the pool is when he's just kind of contemplating life or when he's with the other kid. Now, there's a scene in here where him and the friend, right? Also, who I think is in the same situation as him. No parent is putting their kid
Oh,
on a
absolutely
greyhound
not. Yeah.
to hell knows where without, and then
No,
sending
they're
them
in the same
money and all that
pond.
type of stuff. Yeah,
Same
like
pond,
same,
100%.
they got to be in the same pond, right? Especially I thought maybe, oh, maybe he was, on the opposite side. It wasn't until when the John decides to give him money and he's like, I don't need it. Like, that's another emphasis of like the affluence of everything, right? I remember being a kid. You gave me a nickel. I was like, thanks, mister. Like I and maybe it's just because I'm very materialistic that way, but I don't know of, and especially like if you give money to a kid and they say no, I don't need it, it usually follows up with like, why don't you give it to someone who does need it? Usually it's like a good Samaritan type of thing. But to just go, nah, I don't need it. You sure you want to give it to me? Okay. I don't need it though. Like it definitely, I think, was supposed to highlight that this kid was affluent and all stuff like that. And even when John tried to turn and try to do something, maybe to feel something, he was just met with mediocrity. Like here he is now giving money. Oh my god, I'm an adult. I can donate. I can be charitable and stuff like that. This is going to be so rewarding. And the person who he's charitable to goes, "No, thanks. I'm fine. Thank you."
Yeah, and I mean, I also felt like that scene was he was probably just mirroring his parents too,
Yeah.
right? His parents probably I assume they probably gave their kids money. Um, so I don't know, like I assume he was just being like, "Oh yeah, well, this is what my parents do, I'm gonna do too." um Clearly I do like how they picked another kid that had just a similar problems to him,
Yeah.
maybe not as severe, because I remember him being like, well, where are your parents in the beginning?
Yeah.
That never gets brought up again after where he's just like, oh, it's just us. He doesn't
Yeah.
even explain. So I agree with you, like we're probably dealing with two very wealthy kids that have hours and hours of free time on their hands, and
Yeah,
they're
they could just go
probably
online and curse at each other and go, "No, you're gay. Screw you," and all things like that. I mean, like it's so silly, but that's. I mean, what else could like a kid who's growing up in an affluent environment, but their parents are not either emotionally present or physically present, what can you do? You play games. Like that is
Also,
the
they
rich kid
lived
boy stereotype.
they lived in the woods. Like there weren't neighbors. Like they just lived like it looked to me very isolated. So
Yeah.
he probably didn't have, and he seemed to be having a hard time in school. I don't know. He probably genuinely didn't have, like, not defending John, by the way, not defending him, but he probably didn't have anything to do
Well, and I
besides,
think he's
like,
searching for something to feel, because in a way, like he does the stuff to the gardener. Let's say we go with your theory of him poisoning the gardener. Gardener lives. He doesn't really feel bad.
he
Well, I
just
did
gives
it
him
to a
money.
stranger. What if I did it to my own parents? And then he puts them in the hole and he doesn't feel anything. Oh, what if I was on the opposite end? What if I gave money? What if I did this? And he still doesn't feel. And it's not because he's not able to, but it's because his environment doesn't allow him to feel.
Honestly, I like I said before, I do think the only reason he lets his parents out is just because he gets lonely. That's
In
it.
reality, do you think if he didn't get lonely, do you think he would let his parents die?
Yeah, 100%. He wasn't feeding them for days.
Well, then he's like, I made risotto.
Yeah, and then he forced them to eat this risotto, gave him some wine. The next morning, they find um a ladder. So I do think it's a situation where like he either just wanted to be seen or he just felt lonely because his friend left and he's by himself again and he had nobody, and I think he was just feeling that loneliness. Well, it's better to have people around than be alone. But if you're asking me if he missed his parents, I don't think so. It's not like he would visit them. He would let them starve for days before bringing them fast food
Yeah.
and just one meal. So I 100% think that if he didn't get lonely, if he found what he was quote unquote looking for, he would just let his family die. There was no inkling for that showed that he cared for them.
Yeah, and I think it would have been gradual. I don't think throughout the film he is a psychopath, but I think because of the way that the actions went and stuff like that, but I think he very much could become one. Especially like the drowning scene, man. Like, can you imagine doing that? Like, he also like there's a part where the friend says like, "Oh, I want to try drowning. I want to see if I see anything. AKA, I want to
Yeah.
see if there's death." Right? And this is once again, these kids don't have to worry about hospital bills. They don't have to worry about this type of stuff. They don't have to worry about dying because they got money and stuff. So he holds his head down, and even when after it's not just a little bit of struggling. His friend really starts to struggle, he really doesn't feel much. And so now, do you think he was trying to kill himself once again when he let out his family?
I think it was a thought.
I
Like
think,
I
yeah.
don't know if he was like, "Oh, I'm definitely gonna do this," but I think like you said, like the pool can definitely be like a symbolism for contemplation. So I do think like he probably thought about it. Like I thought, what if I just kill myself? Like it would have been also he was practicing with his friend, so like it wouldn't have been like super hard. Not to say like, oh, he should like. I'm
He
just saying
had
like
practice drowning.
he had time. He had all the time in the world to do it.
Yeah.
Um, I think though my favorite part to analyze about the movie is the ending. Um, so what I got was I did enjoy the fact that the solution to the problem was to bulldoze and destroy the hole and then have family dinner. And I thought it was just very telling. And I what I interpreted from the last scene was I think many families have really deep root problems
Yeah.
and they kind of put a band-aid on like really harsh realities and they cover up superficial issues like, oh, let's just cover up the hole, but that the hole's not the problem, rather than dealing with the more serious and disturbed problem, which is their son. They just cover up the hole so that he can never do that again. Also, I didn't understand that too. Like, I got it, but it was also like, your son drugged you. You don't think he could do it again? Whatever. But
I think the whole is supposed to represent a bit more. I'm gonna go with that. The fact that this director's a little funky and likes to do things a little bit differently, right? So I think this whole is not actually meant to represent a whole. I think this whole is supposed to represent that any like the fact that his family turns a blind eye, right?
Exactly.
Because if you replace the hole and him putting his family in a hole, right? Where like now let's say for some reason he killed someone. You know, the way how his family is just so far removed, literally in a hole away from the whole situation. I think the hole is supposed to be a larger representation of maybe like the type of crazy stuff that affluent families who don't raise their kids properly and stuff like that go through when their kids start doing pretty horrific stuff, you know?
Like
Like,
Succession. No. No, actually, really, but I think, yeah, 100%. I think the whole has something to do with covering up really harsh things. And I like your analysis too, because I do feel like
Bestie,
wealth.
you're just boosting me the hell up today. I appreciate it.
I appreciate your points.
I
I
like
just
your
want to let
points
you
as well,
know
too.
this is why we run a podcast, you know? But no, in all honesty, I do think the film has a lot to do with like wealth and how the wealthy go about raising families. So I think you're right in terms of like I said, I think the whole like just covering up the hole is the minor issue. Oh,
Yeah.
who's texting me? No, I'm running a podcast right now. Everybody's kind of busy.
Yeah, and I think
No,
his parents, like, literally just kinda forgetting about it and burying the hole and stuff is just meaning that it'll never get addressed, that he and it never getting addressed, he will never have a fighting chance to get help for whatever is plaguing him and his mind.
yeah, absolutely.
That is it's this is the type of movie where if someone says, "Oh, I'm into movies," I'm gonna go, "Oh? You should watch this film," because
That's a
it's
perfect way to say it.
that's
Yes.
that's because this is the type of film where you're going to enjoy it if you enjoy dissecting films, if you enjoy interpreting films, and if you enjoy films that really don't have a purpose, but they're just kind of there to just tell a story from beginning to end.
Yeah, if you're into like you said, I think this is more of an analysis piece where like you don't have an answer, but it's just fun to kind of like, pose questions and make up your own interpretations. So I think we should probably give this movie two scores. Our regular, scoring factor, and then we'll probably just give like a criticism score, like, for the movie people, because
Gotcha. I
because
think that's
I'm
smart.
gonna give it a very unfair score if we're just gonna do a regular.
No, that's I think that's so fair, and I think that's so good to acknowledge that because this is such a circumstantial type movie. Like this isn't the movie. Well, I would make everyone suffer at a movie night, but
No.
most people wouldn't. So there definitely has to be like a score for the general population and a score for the movie people.
Yeah.
So who enjoy that type of, breakdown of films and stuff. So what would be your score for the general population?
I'm not gonna be nice about this. I feel really bad, but I gotta give it like a 3.
Ooh,
I I didn't like when you just don't like enjoy a movie. I from an entertainment perspective, there's not a lot to enjoy, right? From a person that just wants to sit down, be entertained, there is not a lot to enjoy. It is also very slow. It's very quiet. The dialogue is far and few if you really think about it.
yeah.
Um, and there is no plot. We are just given random like in terms of an entertainment regular watching movie, I just genuinely didn't enjoy it from that perspective. I did not enjoy it. I didn't enjoy
Yeah.
it from that perspective solely. I just wouldn't recommend this to most people I know. I probably wouldn't own the DVD. I don't see myself watching this again unless I'm doing another analysis, unless I want to look back and see, oh, maybe I can interpret something. But purely me sitting down and watching this,
Be like,
very,
this is a
very
good movie. I'm in a mood for this. Do you think you'll crave this film?
never again, never again will I sit and watch this movie unless it was necessary for me to interpret it. I'm trying not to be harsh. It's nothing against the actors, genuinely nothing against the director. I just don't think this is the type of movie for that.
Okay. Now, what is your score for the film, bro?
Honestly, I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10. I think because there's so much you can, this movie expands and it's very flexible. I think you can sit and ponder this movie for days. I think the acting is very good. I think the directing is pretty good. I think in terms of like interpreting the plot, there is a lot to interpret. I think there's a lot to say about family and wealth. And again, the acting is very good. Um, so in terms of that, I think there is a lot in a positive way that this film brings.
Yeah.
Uh, so if you're really into movies, if you're really into sitting down, and it's not a scary movie by the way, guys. If you're into sitting down for 2 hours and just like taking out your notepad
It
and trying
might
to figure this
stress
movie
you.
out,
It's
it's
definitely
very
stress
stressful.
inducing, but it's not like, "Oh my god, I have to look away because this person's head's getting blown off."
No,
It's not
like
like that.
you're definitely going to sit there and be like, oh, this is a cool movie to interpret. This is a cool movie to start a discourse with, to ask questions. In that regard, like, I think I told you before, like, I was really looking forward to talking about this movie with you because of that.
Yeah.
So, very two different scores for me, because I just think this movie, depending on the person you are, it's just going to give you a different outlook, personally.
Yeah, for me, in terms of like a score for the general population, I'll probably go middle of the way and I'll say 5 because I do think that there are some horror people, like average horror fans, that could enjoy this.
Fair.
I also do really like the directing. There are some really great scenes with like the drone and everything like that that I do appreciate and like. And that also does contribute it to me giving a little bit of a higher score for the film bro. So the film bro score, I would actually give it an 8 because I do think it is so far and few that we get movies like this. And I really appreciate that. And it's definitely like at the end of the day, you're going to remember John in the hole.
Oh,
You're going to want to
absolutely.
forget it, but you're going to remember John in the hole. And I appreciate it for having the ability to have this conversation and not just like, oh, I remember it because I hate it so much,
Oh,
you
no.
know.
Yeah.
So I do think the directing's really good. That soundtrack was pretty killer. I thought that soundtrack was also a really
Oh,
great
yeah. Yeah.
choice for it too. I like a lot of the decisions that the director made when trying to tell the story. And the director is Pasquale Sisto, who, let's see what Pasquale Sisto did. Seems like he hasn't done a lot of stuff. It's really just he did a short film called Oceano and then a TV series called Steps, and then this was like his big um production, like his big film, which honestly, good for you, bro. Good for you, because to do this based on the writing of like an Oscar winner and stuff like that, and honestly, do I think I can only imagine what the script looks like. I could only imagine, and I feel like no matter what the script could have looked like, I think this was the best portrayal of the script out there. So I give it an 8 and for the film bro review, and I just love to be able to have this type of discussion about it. Bestie, we got a theme with holes because you know what film we're talking about next?
Oh my god, what?
Empire of Passion.
Oh my gosh. That's that's funny. That's actually really, really funny.
So tune in next time, guys, when we go back into the hole, and this time it gets even weirder.
It's gonna get real
It's
weird
gonna
from
get
here.
so weird. It's gonna get okay. Also, last thing I just want to say about John of the Hole, was it really necessary to see Michael C. Hall try to touch up on his wife when his daughter's like sleeping 4 feet away from him in the opposite corner of the hole? Like that wasn't necessary. I really didn't need to see
Weird
that.
move.
I really didn't need to see into this dubious mind of how he really, and I guess maybe in a way it just really shows how he doesn't care. The fact that he would be willing to cop a field in front of his daughter and everything like that. But now, oh, if you thought that was bad, now we're going to get into some sexual deviancies with Empire of Passion.
Oh my god.
So
I I gotta watch that movie again.
that
Jesus.
is our review of John in the Hole. Thank you guys so much for listening. As always, shout out to our Patreon. So we have we have Sensei David, we got
Yes.
Homeboy James, we got Danny Boy, and we got our close friend, our close real life friend, Ryan. So thank you
Woo!
guys so much as always. We got some guests and things like that coming up soon, so
Yes.
keep tuned because we are in fact approaching our 100th episode, only 10 episodes away.
Woo!
Thank you guys so much for listening, and next time you hear from us, we will be talking about Empire of Passion. Unless Savanna, do you is are we doing too many holes in a week now, or do we stick with Empire of Passion?
We have to because we need a criterion. So,
We gotta balance. We need a non-Criterion whole story
and
and
we
a
need a
Criterion.
criterion. Absolutely.
100%. All right, thank you
It's
guys
just
so much
whole
for.
week.
It's
It's
just
whole
it's just whole week. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.